All right, so it's noon. Mark, do you want to wait a few more minutes for Tobias, or you want to get started?
I would say let's just start. I think that.
Okay, great. So thanks everyone for joining to another call on the Longevity Biotech show here. I'm Robert Zimin, co-hosting with Nathan Cheng. We are interviewing scientists, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders advancing the state of the art in longevity biotech and how this will, Tobias is here, welcome, how this will impact us and the world in the decades directly ahead, and how you might be able to help or follow in their footsteps. So the way we're going to do this today is we will have a quick intro from everyone, and then probably around 35 minutes of prepared Q&A, and then we'll open it up to the audience for another 15 minutes, a few minutes of closing, and then we'll have an open-ended chat for anyone who has the interest in time. So maybe we can get started with introductions. Mark, do you want to go first?
Yes, happy to do so. So good evening or good morning, everybody, depending on where are you tuning in. My name is Marc, and great for having us here today. I'm a big fan of your activities, Robert and Nathan. I'm originally a tech entrepreneur, so I was always interested in new emerging technologies. So right after college, I founded my first internet company back in 1999, and was also very early going back in 2012. So that longevity was something I was somehow following. I think for the first time back in 2010, when I was at the conference where Aubrey de Grey was speaking. As far as I know, you were the guys who brought Aubrey to Clubhouse for your show last week. So the first time he was speaking here. So we're happy to be the next ones after Aubrey, who also just recently joined our advisory board at Maximon. And yeah, out of this connection to Aubrey, I followed the whole space more closely, and together with my partners, we now started Maximon.
Fantastic. Yes, we're very happy to have you here. And yes, we did have quite some behind the scenes to get Aubrey de Grey and his team onto Clubhouse, but we're happy that he finally made it. Collin, it's a pleasure to have you here. Maybe a quick intro, then we'll get to Q&A later.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for having me. So my name is Collin Ewald. I'm an assistant professor at ETH Zurich in Switzerland. My interest in aging research started around 20 years ago, and been actively into doing research in aging for the last 15 years. So I'm really happy to be at the forefront of the aging field, and I'm here to share the excitement about the new science coming out.
Thanks. We're really happy to have you here, and looking forward to what you have to say. Tobias, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. I myself, from my background, I always have been an entrepreneur. I built my first company when I was a student. And then between 30 and 40, so that's basically the last 10 years, I was tackling a topic which I'm still very fond of, which is climate change. And so I built an investment company, which so far has invested roughly $1.7 billion in clean infrastructure fighting climate change, even more so in depth as well. And I handed over after 10 years leadership to co-CEOs because, once you do something for 10 years, maybe it's not as exciting as it was at the beginning. And maybe also it's time from an entrepreneur perspective to hand over to managers. And I was looking for a new topic where I burn for. And similar to Marc, I was basically stumbling over what is longevity many years ago in 2016 when I attended the Singularity University. And last year during the lockdown, I had a lot of time to read deeper into that topic. And together with Marc, then, as he mentioned, we decided to do a conference, the Longevity Investors Conference. We got a lot of positive feedback. And the more I learned about this topic, the more I decided, wow, that's what I want to do next. And so I see life as a bit in 10-year projects. Yeah, I don't necessarily say it must be only 10, it can also be more. But so I decided for the next 10 years, I want to engage in the topic of longevity. And that's when we decided to not only have the conference, but to build Maximon, the longevity company builder. And so that's what we're doing right now.
Thanks. We are very interested in what you have to say here. I will introduce myself, and I'm Nathan. If you'll lead in, Tobias, you just have to mute yourself. Thanks. Nathan will lead in with questions for you and Marc with Maximon. So I'm a researcher at an aging biology lab in Canada at the moment. I have about 10 years of experience in bioinformatics and research software engineering in academia and industry. And in the last year, I've been getting more into the longevity biotech space in terms of trying to promote the ideas and see what else can be done to try to encourage activity going on here. So we have the Q&A with Nathan. And Nathan, I'll pass it over to you. I just want to remind everyone, I forgot to say this at the beginning, we are recording this. So if you do come up as like on the speakers area, asking questions or anything, you're consenting that we can use your audio and image in the recording. So Nathan, I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Yeah. So I'm Nathan. I'm the founder of longevitymarketcap.com and the associated newsletter there. So fun fact, Marc was actually the first subscriber to my newsletter on pretty much the first day that it came out. So
how funny, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's an early adopter. Excellent. So yeah, so I have a newsletter, basically covers different developments in the longevity biotech space. It's once a week, so you can sign up at longevitymarketcap.com if you're interested. I'm also a founder of longevitylist.com. So that's a jobs board. So if anybody's interested in joining the longevity industry, if you're passionate about moving this industry forward, I encourage you to check it out. It's also Longevity List is also a database of all the startups, companies, investors in the longevity space. And yeah, so I think we're just going to go ahead with questions now. The first part, we're going to focus mainly on Maximon from the point of view of Marc and Tobias, the founders. And then the second half, we'll dig more into science with Robert and asking some questions for Collin. So I guess the first thing I want to ask Marc and Tobias is, why Maximon, right? Like, so for those who don't know, Maximon is like a venture building company based in Switzerland. There's a lot of people interested in longevity. They want to invest and help companies. But your model is pretty interesting. So maybe you can share a bit about the structure of Maximon and how it differs from other sort of investing vehicles in the space.
Yeah, maybe I go first here, and then Marc can correct me and add. I think what makes us special here is we are not a venture investor. So we don't look around for interesting startup companies, which already have done some steps and are now looking for additional financing, and then we just provide financing, and maybe some contacts. It's rather different. I mean, we really build startups together with founder teams from the scratch. We provide capital, we provide network as well, office space, but also we provide manpower. We help building it. In some cases, we initiate a new company. Maybe we don't yet have the full co-founder team on board, but we basically help starting up something. Yeah? The very good thing for the founders is that they fully can focus on the product or service they do. We take care of the fundraising. We take care, as I said, of office space, HR, legal, IT, all that stuff. Yeah. And in addition to that, it also helps that there is not such a high dilution. So our model is that basically the founding team keeps 50% of the shares up and until we can really do a double-digit venture round. That's normally whatever 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And with this, the founder team has probably a smaller dilution than if they would have started up themselves, do a pre-seed round, the seed B round, and so on. So it's really a win-win for everybody. We are faster, we dilute less, and we enable a team to really fully focus on the product they do. Marc, what did I forget?
Yeah, nothing to correct, maybe just to add. I think we see each other, as you might have heard, and we have 2 other founding partners. They're also coming from the business and entrepreneur side. So we are definitely not the scientists and researchers, but we want to build a bridge between science and business. So ultimately, Maximon has the vision and ambition to make the inventions and the researchers in the labs becoming tangible and creating real life business cases out of that. So literally becoming the bridge between science and business. And that's why, as Tobias mentioned, our team is not complete yet. We will have a chief science officer joining us in May, and we have great support, among others, from Collin, which is helping us from a science perspective. We have Ewald from the University of Shanghai, and recently Orbiter Gray supporting us as well. So that's the positioning we have.
Yeah, that's great. I think this is really needed in longevity and biotech in general. Some of the people that I've spoken to, especially academics on Clubhouse who are interested in longevity, a lot of them don't know how to approach the business side, right? So academics who have been in academia essentially their entire life find it rather a daunting task to actually do the business. And since you guys have so much experience, I think this is like an excellent opportunity for anybody who's interested in starting a longevity company. So maybe we can move on to a question about what kind of companies you're interested in. So is there a particular unifying theme in the companies that you are interested in building?
Yeah, maybe I go first this time. As you might have maybe seen on our website, we already mentioned 2 of our first companies. They are more in stealth mode, but 2 are literally already public, and we are, as we speak, in the process of setting these companies up, including the founders and everything you need when you start a company. One is in the longevity supplement field. In our view, a very obvious and straightforward case. Literally everybody who hears about longevity has a certain demand for supplements. That's also what we saw after we organized the Longevity Investors Conference last year. So that's our first venture and challenge we want to tackle. And the other one, in the working title Longevity U, is a platform offering information and also additional services for everybody interested in longevity. So as you might see, it's not the moonshot approach yet. So we start with very simple, very straightforward, very business-oriented approaches. But I think that we can really generate a sustainable and also short-term value out of these activities in the longevity field in general.
Yeah, maybe what we should add is Maximon as a company builder is a platform. So it's not only that we have ideas and then build teams around them, but it's also that teams can come to us. Currently, and this is stealth, we are talking with a very interesting team of researchers. They have found, I cannot tell too much right now, but a very, very promising solution, which will help a lot on the longevity and rejuvenation side. And there we are interested to basically tell them, hey, go on, focus on research, but we help you making a business out of it. Yeah, and we provide you with the money needed now to make this a bit bigger and also from the beginning on to have a global mindset. So in general, we are interested in anything which is either promoting longevity or impacted by longevity. I mean, one thing which is not a secret, it's not that we are currently already working on it, but look at the pension fund problem. Yeah, so if longevity goes the right way, people will be very healthy and fit towards a very high age, and they will also live a bit longer. Our pension system already today, let's be honest, is not doing very well. Pension funds were built for people working till 65 and then dying latest at 73. And now in Switzerland, we are at, I think, 83.5 years life expectancy. And this is keeping growing up. Yeah. So that might be an interesting thing to say. Let's build an asset manager, a company which is helping people to invest for a very long life because they cannot rely on a pension. So we have a very broad mandate. Whatever is, research-based, evidence-based is interesting, but then also fields which might not be directly thought about when you think of longevity can also be very interesting. So anybody with a great idea, business idea, can come to us, and we are very happy to look at it.
Great, yeah. So can people who are based outside of Switzerland also apply for your Maximon Company Builder?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Switzerland is a great country, and we have excellent universities. But I think we will not have all the best ideas coming from within Switzerland. So we are very open, and we also plan to build our platform internationally. Very much also we are a virtual company, but we will build presences both in the Americas and in Asia. That's also why from the beginning on we have an international advisory board. So yeah, we are absolutely open for all geographies.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, so anybody in the audience who has some ideas, maybe have a project or a company that you're thinking of starting, definitely reach out to Marc and Tobias at Maximon. Okay, so I also wanted to discuss this idea about like financial products. You were talking about the pension system. I noticed there was a job notice on Maximon for a SPAC sort of professional. And obviously, from my point of view, monitoring the longevity industry and also the publicly traded stocks, this is very interesting to me. Is there anything you can share, or is this very hush-hush?
Yeah,
go ahead, Tobias.
Okay, I try to be brief. Look, longevity as a sector is moving fast, and a lot of money is needed out there. There is a lot of great companies people have not yet heard about, and they are in a stage where they can now wait maybe another 3 years for an IPO and be heavily diluted until they are ready to do that. And preparing an IPO takes normally north of a year, or they are financed via a SPAC. So I think a SPAC is a super good solution right now to combine two things. One is a lot of institutional investors have simply too much money and they don't really know where to go with that. And B, out there in the longevity industry, there is a lot of companies which are very promising in the need of fast capital. So with a SPAC, you basically can match that. Yeah? And we are currently, as one of our sub companies, establishing Maximon Capital, where we build a team in order to basically run a SPAC.
Yeah, and maybe to add, as already mentioned, I mean, we definitely want to bring more business perspective and also money into the whole space. As you all know, Aubrey de Grey is always evangelizing that the more investors investing into longevity companies, the faster we can boost the developments together. And that's why also from a long-term perspective, bringing more traditional institutional money via a SPAC into the field would definitely boost the whole ecosystem. So there's, beside the business element, definitely also a certain ideological idea behind. And one of our ambition is definitely to bring a lot of money from so far not longevity related sources into the whole industry and companies.
Yeah, yes, definitely. So maybe touching on that, another source of capital that could be interesting is crypto, right? So Marc is an early crypto investor, very well known in the crypto community. And obviously there's been a noted overlap between crypto and longevity. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on that. Like why are they so connected, and what sort of potential collaborations or connections do you see for investing for those two?
Yeah, I think we're both very deep into crypto. I mean, Tobias is the co-founder and chairman of Crypto Finance Group, the first fully regulated asset manager and brokers dealers house in Europe, where I'm also in the board. So we both have a very close relation to the whole digital asset space. I think one of the elements, as you already have heard from us, is that both industries have a huge exponential potential, but maybe not everybody sees that in the early stage where we joined these industries. And I think that's one similarity. And ultimately, I think it's interesting, as you might know, that quite well-known people from the crypto space like Vitalik Buterin, the Winklevoss twins, or Mike Novogratz, they're big philanthropic supporters, among others, of the Sense initiative of Aubrey de Grey, and also some other non-profit initiatives in the longevity field. So it's very fascinating to see and again meet a lot of the people we already did business in the Bitcoin and digital asset space again when we now move into the longevity industry.
Yeah, I definitely noticed the overlap between the two. I wonder if there's a way to get even more of that capital in the crypto community, because obviously the recent boom has been very beneficial to those who have invested. Yeah, so I was wondering if there's a way to get them into longevity, but that's something we can discuss in the future. Yeah, so just looking forward, you mentioned in an article that Maximon has $50 million that will be invested over 4 years. Right now, you're not taking any outside money. That's what as far as I understand. But in the future, there might be a co-investment fund. So what do you think about, or how do you see the future of Maximon in the next, I guess, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, 5 to 10 years nowadays is a long horizon because everything is developing so fast. Look, this year we will found 3 companies. That's already clear, and maybe a 4th one as well. Let's see. Just yesterday evening we decided that, or we discussed that we might need bigger offices already by the beginning of next year. Our goal is basically that next year we will launch another 4 to 5 companies. And in year 3, then maybe even like 5 to 7. So that's a bit the horizon we currently discuss. You said it correctly. We are self-financed at the beginning now. This just allows us to focus on building companies instead of running around for fundraising. However, we do plan a fund. It's a co-investment fund. We think about launching it towards the end of this year. And then this co-investment funds together with us will basically finance the startups we are building here throughout the Series A, as I said, a venture round. And I think that's again a very interesting model, because the idea is, as I said, the team keeps 50%, Maximon then as the initiator and basically birth helper gets 25%, and the fund as the financing entity up to Series A gets also 25%. So it's a very straightforward model, different to other whatever incubators or company builders, venture studios. We clearly put the teams into the middle of attention. That's why they get the biggest share. Otherwise, we cannot get the best people. So we are very happy to be a minority shareholder later on, because we believe that if we have a great team, you don't necessarily need to have the majority here. So if you ask us where we are in 10 years, well, in 10 years, Maximon will be a multi-billion shareholder in very exciting longevity companies. Yeah. I cannot tell you all of them yet because some of them we just don't know yet. They will come to us. As I said, it's a lot of outside ideas coming to us then, and we help them to be successful. But the next 3 years you can expect from us that we in total launch 10 to 15 startups in the field of longevity.
Great, yeah. So before we switch over to Collin and talk about some of the science, maybe I'd just like to give you a chance to put out any notice to the audience. Is there something that we or anybody in the audience can help you with? Are you guys looking to hire? I know obviously you're looking for entrepreneurs, people who have ideas in longevity to come collaborate with you, but anything at all that you guys would like to put out there?
Yeah, I mean, it would be definitely great to visit our website, maximum.com, where we have quite a few public job profiles published. I mean, we have a few ones which are not publicly published, but you get a certain indication about the profiles we're looking for at the moment for our existing public ventures. Additionally, reach out to us if you think that we can help you to make your research, which should be longevity related, tangible and a big business together with us. And besides that, I think most in this room have a close connection to the industry. So ultimately, it's about making the dream and vision behind the idea of longevity becoming a reality. That's ultimately the main reason why we are doing Maximon.
Yeah, and I can add on that. I mean, at this stage of an industry, it's not about competition, it's about cooperation. So we are very interested also to talk to others building company here. We are building an ecosystem. And what we also should say is that we will do our Longevity Investors Conference again at the end of September. So also everybody who is interested, to play a role there or just being an attendant, you also can reach out to us, of course.
Great.
And now to the science.
Yes, to the science. Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. So, Collin, very good to have you here. And it's wonderful to see that you're getting involved with commercialization of longevity ventures. So it's funny because being in research myself, I've been studying you and following your work for a couple of years, ever since I was at Genentech in San Francisco. And so I'm somewhat familiar with what you do in your lab already, but perhaps you can share with the rest of the audience here. You focus on extracellular matrix research in C. elegans with an aim to understand the biology of aging. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on what this means and why you're focusing on this area.
Well, thank you very much. So yes, my lab is basically interested in the molecular underpinning what happens during aging and how we can improve certain things that go wrong during aging with some genetic tricks or with pharmacological interventions. And so back in the days, I compared all the longevity interventions that we known and that are conserved and try to figure out what happens when these longevity interventions are mobilized. And so, of course, there was lots of protection going on inside the cells. We have a great understanding how proteins inside the cells are maintained, how reactive oxygen species are either used for signaling or quenched. But we have little understanding what happens actually outside of the cells. And so when I looked at these longevity intervention, one common denominator I noticed was actually the extracellular matrix. So I stumbled really by accident into the extracellular matrix. And so now my lab is trying to figure out what role plays the extracellular matrix. So just to give you a little bit background on this is, since we are a multicellular organism and we have around trillions of cells, these all need to be connected together and to form a multicellular organism. And so, of course, aging not only happens inside the cells, but also outside. And so the organism has to maintain the extracellular matrix. And you see many age-dependent diseases like cancer that forms a much stiffer extracellular matrix, or you get fibrosis, which is making too much extracellular matrix, too much collagens, for example, or osteoporosis, which makes too little extracellular matrix, right? So there's a real disbalance going on during aging that affects the extracellular matrix. And so what we have found using C. elegans is that when we manipulate the extracellular matrix, we can actually extend the lifespan of an organism.
So you sort of stumbled into this after researching or looking into other areas of what can eventually perhaps become longevity therapeutics. You have on your lab's website as the strategic goal to identify novel strategies to improve human health span. And you mentioned that the matrix is really a common component amongst all these. Why did you focus on C. elegans as a primary model organism? Although I can see here that you have done work where you've published on mice and other organisms as well.
Well, that's a very simple answer to your question. I mean, if I would start, I can study the extracellular matrix in humans, but looking at the extracellular matrix during aging will take a long, long time. And the same thing is true for looking at the extracellular matrix in mice. I mean, the mouse lifespan is around 4 years, right? And so if I want to look at the old mice, I have to wait another 2.5 years to 3 years to finally start my interventions. And so to be much quicker, we use the small organism C. elegans, which lives around 1 month, and aging happens pretty quick. And aging of the extracellular matrix happens around in days. So within 8 days during their adulthood, the extracellular matrix starts to change. So we see those changes. And importantly, we see those changes in vivo. We see it in a living organism. And so we can see those changes, we can manipulate everything there and see what's the effect on aging. So it's like the first litmus test to see whether any intervention remodels the extracellular matrix and also increases lifespan. And then we go on and try to find the proof of concept in cell cultures, basically more in organoids. And finally, we try to test our intervention in very old mice. So, you can nowadays actually order old mice, and then we start our interventions and see what happens within 6 months, whether we can reverse some of the aging changes or not. And so basically we go from 2 different model organisms, trying to go up the translational value chains and hopefully end up with, some cool new targets for pharmaceutical things, or establish novel knowledge that can lead to further interventions.
So it's for practical reasons. Makes sense. It's very interesting. You mentioned organoids just now. Is this an area that you're looking at to it's quite an exciting area also of biomedical research, but are you trying to make use more of these to make more use of these kinds of platforms and new platforms like organoids, or is that something you just recently started experimenting with?
So these are things we just trying to get into. So I mean, these whole things, lab on chip and things like that, they've been out for a while, but now it becomes more and more clear that we can actually, produce these extracellular matrices in these organoids. I mean, basically, you can produce a nice extracellular matrix in a cell culture by crowding, molecular crowding the liquids phase over the cells. So basically, every cell produces their own extracellular matrix. So they're constantly producing big proteins like collagens and proteoglycans. And once the cell has produced enough of them, then it starts to remodel their extracellular matrix And it's a back and forth from outside the cells to inside of the cells. So we can do this just in regular cell culture dishes. But again, I mean, we are multicellular, so you have different cell types, and one cell type can produce the axonal matrix for another cell type, and they're all surrounded. So you need this interplay, and organoids is a fantastic system to model these aspects.
All right, now just a few more minutes here before we open it up to audience questions. Perhaps I can ask, in connection also to the science and the work that you're doing, and how it relates to your involvement now with Maximon and Marc, Tobias, and others. So you've had quite a distinguished career already. You have studied or worked in a number of different labs around the world, including the City University of New York, and I believe in Basel too, according to your CV here. So my question now is, what is it like working at the ETH in Zurich and the Department for Biosystem Science and Engineering? Is it making your commercialization involvement easier? Are there limitations? What's your? Do you collaborate with others who have expertise in other areas of biomedical research? What are your thoughts on this?
Exactly. So just to back up, I've been the last 10 years in the US. So first in New York, and then in Boston at Harvard Medical School, and at Whitehead, MIT for a little while. And when I came back, so after 10 years in US, there was a personal decision to come back to Switzerland, and ETH is actually great because they have a real pipeline to do startups, right? And I think it's one of the best pipelines in Europe, at least. And they provide you with almost everything. So I mean, my daily interactions, I have phone calls with the tech transfer, and they take the time to explain different things and things I don't understand. Plus, they provide a real nice environment for my PhD students or postdocs who want to start build a company. They have courses, they have things that prepare you for different grants, also for Swiss grants is one of them. And the interaction is pretty vibrant, and I think it's a very exciting place to be at ETH to do these kind of things. And they have a really good track record. So I mean, if you look at the startup companies that come out and how long they last, I think they are almost world leading. And so this brings me also to the connection to Maximon. So always in my scientific career, I always had this, lookout for entrepreneurial things. And, as you noticed, Marc and Tobias, they're super energetic, very vibrant and smart and smart business people. And, when they approached me, I really liked their new kind of way to venture into that space. I've been watching for quite some while, and and my role with Maximon is to be an independent scientific advisor, so I can bring all the science knowledge I have, I can bring to the table, and I can also honestly tell them what I think about the science that different startups or companies bring, right? I can that makes it always nice to be independent and saying like what really is true. And I think this is going to help them also to make the right decision and move around in this kind of space.
It's fantastic. I apologize also, it looks like actually you're affiliated with the Department of Health Science and Technology, not DBSSC. One last question, I guess we can open up to the audience afterwards. So aside from the work that you're doing and that you're getting involved with with Marc and Tobias now, who would you say is, in your opinion, doing the most interesting frontline research in academia and in industry at the moment?
Oh, so I'm a big fan of Anne Prenay. She has just developed the killifish model, which lives only for around 3 months, and it's the next closest step to us humans. She's at the forefront, a big fan of her. And then my own personal hero is, of course, Cynthia Kenyon, who started this whole thing in 1993, where she discovered that the single mutation in a single gene can double the lifespan, and also showed that's under biochemical control. And that opened up the whole field actually of aging research as we know it. And she now, had a wonderful academic career and now wandered into, work with Calico, the longevity company, right?
Of course, yes. She's at Calico now, so for some time. So maybe with some luck, we can get some folks from Calico, perhaps even her, and put some follow-up questions also to see what they're up to. All right, thank you so much, Collin. Where can people learn more about your work? What is the best place you would recommend?
So we have a website, ewaldlab.com. You can check it out there, or follow at, I have a Twitter account. You can follow our Twitter account where we tweet our latest exciting science. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So we're going to open up to questions from the audience. If you have a question, just raise your hand here. We'll bring you up. Just a reminder to everybody, we are recording this. So if you come up to the speakers area, you're consenting to be part of to have your voice and photo as part of the recording. So Max, welcome to the stage. Thanks for waiting patiently. What is your question for our panel?
Hey guys, great conversation so far. I've got like a question with respect to Switzerland. There are like two things about Switzerland. Switzerland is quite obviously like a financial hub of the world. It's like very crypto friendly, but it also has like a lot of stuff going on in medicine and pharmaceuticals, right? So I'm wondering what's like the legislative stuff going on in Switzerland with regards to longevity? How does like the population, the government see it? And also, do you see like the big pharmaceuticals that are like headquartered in Switzerland moving into longevity and putting money in, or at least having conversations with you guys about the topic in Switzerland?
Yeah, I love that question because I think it's absolutely the right one. So we believe that Switzerland is ideally situated, both because of people here already live quite long. I think after Japan, we are number 2 or 3 with 83.5 years life expectancy right now, but also because of, as you mentioned, pharmaceutical company, bioscience companies here, excellent universities. And what we have done is Marc and I, we spoke together with a friend of ours who is a politician, the youngest national councillor in Switzerland, André Silberschmidt. And told him what we are doing, and he got very excited as well and said, well, let's do something about. And so I think about 3-4 weeks ago, he handed into our government, that's 7 ministers in Switzerland, interpellation, that's basically a question asking, okay, what is Switzerland doing for longevity and what can we do in order to become the longevity valley? So this is now an official question. A whole process has been set in course with that, and the government now must answer within a certain period of time, I think some months, what our national plan for this is. So we have started indeed a political discussion here because we really think that Switzerland can move fast in this direction, maybe even can come to a point where we say, hey, aging is something which is not just inevitable, but it can be treated. And if Switzerland would make, as the first country in the world, a move in this direction, this, of course, would really put us at the forefront. So, yeah, I'm very excited for Switzerland having a chance here to not only be the crypto valley, but also the longevity valley.
They're very nice prospects. Thank you.
I want to add to this. The excitement there is also, I'm a founder of the Swiss Society for Aging Research, right? And a year or 2 years ago, the WHO didn't have aging research anymore in their agenda, right? So then the Swiss society, the German, and other societies came up with some letters and, you know, getting heavily involved to put this back on the table, right? And now me being in academia and trying to connect all the researchers, I noticed that, you know, I can make certain impact for politics and policies, right? But I was super excited with Marc and Tobias, you know, really in this short amount of time had such a huge impact. And so I think this is, you know, the excitement to join academia and industry to act on that kind of political level. So.
Yeah, maybe to add, that's ultimately, again, our long-term vision and ambition. We have a very holistic approach. I mean, ultimately, we want to become successful with Maximon and our companies. But beyond that, we really want to shape the whole space. And that goes far further than the activities of Maximon itself. So by also addressing society, involving politicians, bringing it up to the governments, because we all need a regulatory framework which is fostering these new, quite disruptive technologies. And in Switzerland, we saw how quickly we were able to back then also shape the framework for the whole blockchain and digital asset space. So the term crypto valley and now longevity valley is definitely a good analogy. And that's why, yeah, we want to be active on all different layers and fields to really foster the ecosystem from a holistic and broad perspective.
So I should just point out, fantastic question and answer. Max is actually a PhD student in Brian Kennedy's group at the National University of Singapore. And the government of Singapore is also quite active in trying to do very much what I think you guys are talking about here. So some friendly competition from the other side of the world.
Synergies, I would call it.
Yeah, let's do it together. Singapore, Switzerland, and every other country is invited.
Synergies indeed. There's far too much fragmentation in the longevity space so far. So if anyone else has any questions in the audience, please just raise your hand and we will bring you up. I have a question coming from a somewhat contrarian position, let's say, having worked in cancer research at Genentech and having studied that area a little bit. So, you know, there's all this talk about trying to bring money and political power behind the longevity space. What guarantee or what would you say to the idea that, you know, in cancer research, there has been a tremendous amount of money and effort and time and political clout behind all of the efforts over the last, say, 50 years from the war on cancer in the US to the present. And even though there's some exciting developments such as immunotherapy in the last couple of years, generally speaking, the therapies for cancer have not really advanced as much as people had expected, given the amount of resources that have been put behind it. So, what assurance is there that something like this won't happen in the longevity space as well?
Yeah, I think nobody answers it. Maybe you have to wrap it up again. I think it was not really very clear to us.
Essentially, the cancer research space has had a tremendous amount of resources and time and political influence put into it, and some people say that you know, it hasn't produced very much. What sort of strategy do you see to try to avoid the same outcome in longevity?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one. Maybe Collin, as a scientist, can a little bit dig into the detail from a science perspective. But ultimately, I mean, we're definitely not, as Tobias already mentioned, able to look in the far future. But I mean, just looking at the scientific foundations and results as we speak, what's happening in this new emerging longevity field shows that there are very obvious and very fascinating, very fact-driven developments which are in a in the most extent not implemented yet, and that's where we want to start, right? I mean, if we have a discussion as the one you mentioned in 10 years or even 20 years from now, we will see. I'm quite sure that there will be a very tangible impact on society and on the humans based on these developments. But yeah, it's very difficult to look into the far future at this very, very early stage.
So as Marc mentioned, this is a very tough question. And I mean, I cannot tell you really point out what went wrong there or what are the mistakes we should avoid. What I can tell you is that the aging field is actually learning a lot from the cancer field, right? I mean, when Weinberg defined the hallmarks of cancer, the aging field now in 2013 actually for the first time defined the hallmarks of aging, right? So the 9 hallmarks, and these are like guidelines where you can place any intervention or any changes in those 9 hallmarks. And that's conceptually very advantage to have. So we learned something from the cancer field. Now, you know, the other side from the science is super hard, right? And so if you think about drug development, I mean, even in the preclinical phases, 1 out of 5,000 will even make it, right? And it takes a long time, a lot of money, and you know there's safety precautions in there. So I think you know it's a very difficult thing, and it needs a lot of smart people to work together. But also, I mean, yeah, I think also like the whole system. If you need from the academic side, you need a different system, right? I mean, the publishing system, the reward is just to go fast and go high impact, right? That's all it's counted. But then there is little research done or little research or incentive given to do applicable research, right? So really translating these findings and finding better ways to improve this. From the academic side, there's less incentive. And so this is all I can tell you from my side here.
Okay, really appreciate your thoughts on this. I mean, this is a tough question. You know, don't get me wrong. None of us would be here if we didn't believe that we can push through these challenges. But it's something to think about here. So we have a couple more minutes for audience questions, and then we'll try to get through the lightning round. Quick. Just to put to everyone on the panel, do you have a bit of time to go past the hour, or should we have a hard wrap at 1 o'clock Eastern here?
I would have to leave at 7, unfortunately, then.
Yeah, okay. Same here, but feel free to continue.
I can stay.
Okay, sounds good. So let's try to get through the last couple of questions here quickly. Danny, welcome to the stage. What's your question?
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, guys, for sharing your knowledge and explaining what Maximon does. My question is to the founders of Maximon, actually. How do you guys see the synergy between longevity startups and blockchain technology beyond the crypto native investors? So do you plan to leverage from the blockchain technology, and is that on the pipeline?
Yeah, hi Danny, nice to meet you again. We know each other from our conference in St. Moritz, so very happy to see you at least virtually here. It's a good question. I mean, we, with our background, definitely have a very close relationship to the blockchain world, and I think there are a few very interesting approaches when it comes to connecting research with money, for example, or where you have a blockchain-based tracking system where you can put research papers on it, and then you have a verified approach of all the results. So there are a few interesting startups in this field. I think at this stage, as we mentioned, we are focusing on the companies we mentioned, but we're also definitely very interested in everything which is happening in this field. I think with the blockchain in technology in general, it's always about, are you really solving a problem, or are you creating something where there is literally not really a problem yet? So you solve something which is in reality not really an existing problem. But if there are interesting approaches in this field, we're definitely very interested in it.
Yeah, and maybe I can add on that. I mean, as we mentioned before, we have two companies already now being built. Supplements is one of them. Now, the good question is, we know a lot about what supplements can have a positive impact on longevity. However, we do not necessarily know who has to take what exactly and in what quantity and how often. So I take NMN and maybe whatever, resveratrol, and Marc is better off with NMN and spermidine. So we need to find a lot of data, and I'm coming to the usual word big data here. We need to analyze that. And in order to do so, we need to get a lot of basically data points from people, aiming to reach longevity, both with, their high intensity training, their intermittent fasting, and also the supplements they take. And so all those data points need to be stored and analyzed. And I think here we talk about health data, which, as you all know, is super sensitive. And I do think that blockchain might really be the right technology here when it comes to this critical data storage, so that we have anonymized data, but also can feed back to the individual there. So yes, I do see a link between longevity and blockchain.
Thank you very much, guys.
All right, couple minutes left. Laura, very quickly, what's your question?
Hi, thanks for having me on stage. So quickly, for Marc and Tobias, my interest in longevity lies on the consumer experience and actually making it something consumers want, because there's no point in preaching to the converted. I am wondering, there was a Newsweek cover that came out yesterday with saying, can blood from young people slow aging? Silicon Valley has bet billions it will. The article has amazing science in it, but it's really covered on the billionaires against poor people and also all the negative aspects of it. Are you planning as investors to spend money on branding and PR, because longevity has potentially an issue with that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I can tell you, when we set up our Longevity Investors Conference last year, we realized that a very blurry line in between what you can present and how far you can go, at least when you mainly target traditional, very high level and serious investors, which are already quite astonished by the facts of traditional longevity, let's call it that way. So that's why it's definitely also one of our missions. On the other hand, as you might know, it wouldn't be the best idea to start with the most contradictory fields in this whole industry, because I think it's a little bit about building trust and really go a pure science-based path. Even as you mentioned, there are a few fields where science shows very clear results, but media somehow has its own perspective. So that's definitely also something which is on our agenda. I think ultimately, as it is in crypto, if certain journalists have a certain view, and the analogy of only billionaires are able to extend their lifespan, and that's ultimately the thesis how you start to present longevity, it's a tough stand, but that's definitely something we want to challenge and tackle.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. We've got less than 2 minutes on the clock. So Nathan, let's go for one lightning round question with quick answers from everybody, and then we'll let people leave at the hour.
Okay, so everybody on the panel, first question is, how long do you want to live?
120, and I would like to stay healthy until I die.
Yeah, I don't have a number, but ultimately as well, healthy till the last day and happy.
I would like at least to go to 90, but in very good health, and then the decline should be less than 3 months, and I will be happy.
All right. You want to do one more, Nathan, or we got to close in less than a minute?
Yeah, let's just close it up here. I think that was a great way to end. And thank you so much, Marc, Collin, and Tobias, for coming on our show.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank
And
you.
I mean, Collin, feel free to stay on stage. Thanks a lot for having us, and also to the audience. It was exciting, and we're just in the beginning. So hopefully we have to share far more in not a far future from now.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, also thank you from my side. Thanks for organizing, Robert and Nathan. And of course also Collin to join us from the scientific side and covering our back here. And thanks for the audience. I think it's great that you're interested in the topic. That's you are early moving, and I think we will hear much more. And I look forward to meet you all soon again on that topic.
Thank you so much to everybody. Just a quick reminder to stay up to date on the upcoming shows and other news in the longevity scene. Please follow me and Nathan here and on Twitter. Also the Longevity Show Twitter account and longevitybiotechshow.com. And you can also follow Nathan's newsletter at longevitymarketcap.com. So thanks again, everybody, for showing up. We had a fantastic conversation. Collin, if you have a few minutes to stay on after the hour here, you're welcome. Marc, Tobias, thanks again. We will have a recording of this up on YouTube or on the website in a few days' time. So feel free to leave quietly. And there we go. I guess I'll open up the hand raising again to everybody. There we go. And again, just a reminder for everyone here, this is being recorded. So if you come up on stage, you're consenting to have your voice and image part of the recording. All right, so any other questions from the audience? We can continue here. Collin, thank you so much for also taking the hard question from me at the end there. I think it's something that has been on a lot of people's minds, certainly in the drug development space. There is the so-called Erum's law, Moore's law spelled backwards, discussing the exponential trend going in the wrong direction, where it's actually getting exponentially more expensive for drugs to be developed compared to a couple of decades ago. So as far as I know, at least, this is still an open question as to why. And hopefully this decade and developments in longevity will start to reverse that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you, Rob and Nathan, for the great interview. You did the great split between, the science part and the business part. And yes, I mean, if we had the answer to your question there, that would be wonderful, right? And we could at least learn from the mistakes. But again, the mistakes, to me at least, are not quite clear cut what went wrong, right? So it's a very complex situation.
Collin, can I follow up on that? Maybe I agree it's like a very delicate topic, but maybe looking from another direction, what do you currently think is going wrong in the longevity field? For example, I think, I think like that we still like sometimes do like aging study in young animals is probably something that is not optimal. But like from your perspective, what do you think could the aging research field do better to, in a way, produce better results that are like more reproducible and have like more things standing behind them?
Yeah, thank you, Max. I mean, you're correct. I mean, most of the studies are done actually in young mice, right? You do these interventions, and usually if you would compare it to humans, it would be you would do the intervention when a person is 20 years old, and then you wait up to the next 60 or 80 years and see the effects, right? And so that is one thing. And so we are currently actually trying to change this with, there's a group in our institute, the former Mitchell lab, where they use a so-called frailty index. And so they look at older mice. And so this index is actually telling me how, what's the health status of those animals. And then a quick way to address this is actually to test any therapeutic interventions and see how that changes this frailty score. Frailty score is also used in humans as clinical readout, right? And so that will change. But again, we need better models to really address aging itself, right? And so I think they are coming. They're not there yet. And, every model you have is just a little aspect of a certain things, right? And so this is also one problem why most of the findings or most drugs don't really translate, right, to human applications. And so what is the aging field doing wrong? I mean, or the longevity field doing wrong? I don't think per se they do anything wrong. I mean, sometimes it's a trial and error, and I think it's a very young field, and it has to find or balance in where to go and what directions to go, right? And so, of course, there are going to be lots of hiccups and mistakes on the way, but I think the more excitement is coming up, at least the last 5 to 10 years, it's just astonishing how fast the field is moving per se. Again, what it's really needed would be some vision or some sight where the field is going, also from the research side, right? What are the next things we should tackle, right? Should we just tackle slowing aging morphologies or slowing damage accumulation, or can we really tackle that we can rejuvenate or replace certain broken things? And with this, we also have then to think in terms of ethics, right? What interventions are actually ethical to do using CRISPR-Cas9, for example, or something in that direction. So I think it's going to be exciting to move forward.
Yeah, this. If I can just follow on that, Collin, very interesting that you brought up that it would be useful to have a vision for what to pursue here. Do you think it'd be useful to have a science and technology roadmap for longevity, similar to how other fields have this? The most famous example is in semiconductors, but there are other areas, I believe, that have such outlines for near-term research. Would that be useful in longevity as well?
I think, yes. I think there's always pros and cons to any approach, but I think it would be useful, and it would be actually useful that if science and industry and everybody could come together and figure out such kind of plan. I don't think everybody's going to agree, and everybody would have different things. But if we could really come up with 1 or 2 or 3 visions where to go, I think that would move the field forward. At the moment, I don't see any clear path, clear vision, or what can be addressed, would be a real long-term goal, would be the moonshots to go after, right? And what can we translate now already, right?
So on that note, in your opinion, or in your estimation, what are, say, the top 3 outstanding open problems of the field at the moment?
Oh my God, that is another difficult question, right? I mean, this is the same thing like, the story when young Einstein came to the professor and asked, what are the 3 unsolved problems in mathematics and physics, right? And that professor was able to give him those outstanding problems. And to be quite honest, I don't know. I don't know those 3 problems. I mean, I only can tell you what my biased opinion is, right? But yes, I really don't know.
Okay, fair answer. I'm a little embarrassed to be put next to such a distinguished historical anecdote there. But Max, Nathan, you both had comments here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment about the Evrum's law. There was a paper in, I believe, Nature in 2020, last year, that sort of noted that Evrum's law had been broken, though, because, it's no longer getting more and more expensive. It's kind of leveled off. More and more expensive to develop new drugs. It's actually leveled off a little bit, and I think it's getting a little cheaper. So I just wanted to dispel that myth of Evrum's law that we're on this trajectory of doom. It's not true.
Well, that's fair, but it has been true for 50 years. So compared to the 1950s, it's still very much more expensive than it was, even if it's leveled off now, which is a promising.
Yes. Well, I'm just trying to say it's not like the future has been determined. Okay, so good point. But then the second point that I wanted to put out is regards to cancer and how much money has been put into cancer, but the results haven't been as much as we have wanted. But I would just like to point out that there have been advances, right, which you have noted, whereas in longevity, we still don't have any proof that we've been able to modulate biological aging in humans. So I think the very first step would be just to show that we can make a change, even if it doesn't pan out to be as big as we wanted initially in the first, decade or so. I think just making any amount of progress is going to be huge, right? Because that's the first 0 to 1.
Yeah, fully agree there.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with like what Nathan just said, right? I mean, you obviously have like all those great projects and moonshot projects, which we hopefully get to some point in the future. But I think the entire field will have like a much easier way once we have like a first clinical trial that literally proves it black and white on paper that we were like able to extend health or lifespan, be it only like for a few months or like for a few years in humans. I think once that is working, I think money is rolling in, and we probably won't have to worry anymore about funding any other research, including moonshot projects. But I think maybe that goes together like with what Collin was, what's the vision of the field, which is hard to tell. Right? Maybe we should push like for like some easy wins first before like even like talking about moonshot projects. But then the question is, what are the easy wins, and are there any easy wins to begin with?
So I'm gonna take this up. So first of all, I mean, one thing with all those drug development or drugs to put on the market is the huge problem that that we humans all different, right? So if you have a drug and it usually the drug works in 1 out of 10 people or 3 out of 10 people, right? There was a great Nature paper in 2015 really showing that heterogeneity and the need for personalizing medicine in that kind of form. So I think now with all these new technology and health tech and things like that, and all these omics data, maybe we can go into this more personalized medicine area to really get targeted approaches for the patient, right? And so I think that would definitely move the cancer field forward, because breast cancer is not breast cancer. There's so many different subtypes and chemo-resistant ones and things like that. So I think that would be a fruitful approach. Now, to the clinical trials, or to any proof in humans that it works, I mean, as you know, and also in this chat room, is that there is no clinical trial for aging, or aging is not approved as a disease, or not considered to be a disease, at least for clinical trials, right? And so the real proof of concept is going to be hard. To me, the lowest hanging fruit, honestly, is those clinical trials using either intermittent fasting or time restricted fasting, where at least in pre-diabetic humans, males at least, we see good changes, right? Health parameters that change. And so for me, the next low hanging fruits would be do a combinational trial between things that we know work to extend lifespan or health span. So, combine exercise with, intermittent fasting kind of things, and then really figure out, a program that works and a way that we can actually personalize these programs to different people, because, everybody has a different recovery time for the exercise. Everybody reacts differently to the food, so you need some glucose monitoring, whether you spike glucose eating brown rice or ice cream or things like that. And I think if you can adapt these things, I think you will make real progress in terms of health, which leads to better life quality during aging.
So just to follow on to this, I thought of a different way of phrasing my early question, actually. Maybe to get your own, as you say, biased opinion, but yours is a very well-biased opinion, I would say. What important truth you know, hypothesis do few people agree with you on? And related to this, what do you think is likely to be overstated at the moment in the field? Like something that people believe generally, but that is probably wrong.
So you ask me this. As you know, I'm Swiss, and Swiss people are pretty neutral, right? So, so pointing out things that I think are not gonna work or overstated or inflated, I think I'm not gonna make. I keep it private, right? Because again, you know, you always can be wrong, right? And so it's just, you know, the personal opinion. I mean, the exciting part would be, you know, to find any intervention or any company that can make a real breakthrough, right? And, you know, if only one of these different interventional aspects really work, that would be wonderful, right? And make a real impact. So, yeah, that's all how I want to comment on that.
Fair enough. If I may, just one follow-on, and then we can change the subject. So we had João Pedro de Magalhães from the University of Liverpool, also very prominent in the space, long-time longevity proponent and researcher. And we had him on our Q&A a couple of weeks ago. He made a very interesting comment at one point saying that the hallmarks of aging are possibly kind of misleading, or that they're a little bit overused, something to that effect. And you know, in that paper, for example, it's the most cited paper at the moment in the field. The only mention of the hallmarks is kind of in a qualitative, descriptive way. There's no quantitative measure. And Pedro went further and said that, in fact, that these hallmarks are probably kind of just what's popular right now. And he gave, I think, the example of, was it oxidative stress or something used to be more considered some years ago and now is less popular, something along these lines. Do you have any comment on this?
You know, I in certain extent, I agree with Pedro. I mean, Pedro is a collaborator also with me. We do science together and have nice conversations. And, you know, I mean, these hallmarks of aging, you just really have to look at them as guidelines, right? And they shouldn't be set in stone. And it's the first version, right? And with any first version, everything could be right or wrong, right? And I think now these are done from 2013, and I guess we have to update them and revise them, right? Because the system is pretty complex. But the nice thing with these hallmarks is they just simplify the whole thing. They just conceptualize the whole thing. Yes, and I agree with Pedro. They're not capturing everything, and they're not capturing the complexity of the system. And you know, it doesn't capture at all the system's biology that is really going on. Right? There are multiple layers interacting together, and that's kind of lost.
Very interesting. Thanks for your thoughts. So we have another person on the panel here. Angie, welcome to the stage. Do you have a question for Collin, or just start the conversation?
Yeah, hi. Once again, I'm Angie. I didn't know I would be on this fast. So I am Angie. I live in Los Angeles. I created the Ageless Rebellion a couple of years ago and did a lot of research at the time. That was maybe 3-4 years ago. And there was and still is a conference called RAAD Fest, RAAD Fest. And they invited amazing speakers and were kind of forerunners in the industry. There was also a huge floor selling products, anti-aging and longevity and life extension products. And in my opinion, or what I then heard, sorry, I was just running, there were lots of clinical trials in place, already done, in process. I had a panel the other day with Liz Parrish from BioViva. They did a clinical trial on life extension via telomeres extension. So I did not quite get this. Why are you saying that there are no clinical proof, research, tests on the way? I wondered if I misunderstood or what you were talking about. Thank you so much. I'm Angie, and I'm done.
Dear Angie, this is thank you for your comments. So I mean, what you have to distinguish is, there are clinical trials, but there are different endpoints that they measure, right? So they might say, okay, we have an intervention and we look at telomere length, or we look at other molecular changes like the transcriptome or the gene expression in muscle, how a drug would affect that, right? But the endpoint you really want is to improve health and make you survive for longer, right? And that is not considered. And the second part is, I mean, some of those ones are done, on orphan diseases, so to speak. So, very, specialized parts of it, and they just want to show one aspect. And the last part is that you mentioned these conferences with these, beauty products and things like that. And there are a lot of clinical trials on, skin health and elasticity and well-being in this kind of respect. And of course, again, they just look how your skin changes and how less wrinkles you have, which definitely will have a positive effect on your psyche, because you look in the mirror and you look much more younger and you feel more positive, right? And that gives you a little bit more energy. But again, I was talking about hardcore clinical trials to really show that there is an effect on lifespan, right? That the people age slower and are more and healthier.
Yeah, that was exactly my point also. It was not about wrinkles and beauty. It was about Radfest is about life extension, radical life extension, they call it. And there were people, speakers like Ray Kurzweil and Aubrey de Grey and Liz Parrish. And Liz Parrish, the woman from I mentioned before from BioViva, she was her own clinical trial. They had a method. They have a method to extend your telomeres. And I'm not a scientist, so I cannot repeat this in a probably perfect way. But their trial actually extended her telomeres, so that is definitely in the direction of life extension, and it was a trial that was successful. So yeah, Radfest is not about wrinkles, it's about our lives. And what I have seen is, and that was part of my question, I had seen and heard about, and they demonstrated, especially in stem cell research, lots of trials and successful trials. So that's what I wanted to add. And maybe they are worth checking out, and I guess they will do another conference next year. Thank you so much. I'm Angie, and
yeah, thanks for that. So if I can just add, maybe Collin can confirm, Liz Parrish's experiment there on herself, which to my understanding is still kind of unclear to the larger community. A proper clinical trial requires a much larger number of people in the trial in order to be sure of the effect. It also has to be randomized and all kinds of controls, and there's a very extensive process, and all of this is designed to protect against false positive results, because you can always have something that works in one person and not another. And you can see this happening, for example, in the mRNA vaccines against COVID that are going on right now. It's essentially kind of a gigantic trial where rare exceptional conditions are showing up for some of the vaccines that are scaring people. So as much as it might have worked for Liz, and that is a positive and encouraging result, she's just one person, and in order to really be sure, you got to try with a much larger number. But if I can add to this, because you brought up a point now, which is, I think, very, very interesting and relevant, certainly going back to what Laura was saying, which is, the longevity space, aging biology, perhaps a bit less so in the academics context, but certainly the longevity seen more as seen from consumers. Excuse me. It has a connotation of being associated strongly with people like those at the RadFest. In other words, radical life extensionists, people who are very, very much in the direction of, to prolong life indefinitely and go even beyond that with transhumanism and other such ideas at all costs, essentially. And I guess I wanted to follow on to this and say, while it's interesting to go in that direction, certainly, Collin, perhaps you can add if you're willing to share your thoughts on this. What is your impression of the benefits and pitfalls of the aging biology and longevity space being associated too strongly or too closely with the radical life extension movement and other such areas?
I mean, my core expertise is as a scientist, and I mean, I must say, I had a PhD student who was really interested in transhumanism and things like that, and it was really fun actually also to discuss these things with him. It's just, to me, my goal is really to extend health during aging, really the life quality and the how you feel and be independent as an old person. That's my personal goal, right? So my personal goal is to live to 90, maybe 100, have a good life, not many diseases, right? And just be, fit, mobile, can independent, don't depend on anybody, need no help. And then the decline can be fast. And I think by then, I've seen most of it. I've seen it all. I mean, now, even at my age, I can say, like, as they say in French, déjà fait, déjà vu, already done, already seen a couple of things, right? But this is my personal view and opinion. So, I think it's important to, at least how I handle it in my own lab, is to embrace different opinions and different cultures, right? Because if we all work together and we have a common goal to work to, then I think that makes it more interesting and also more successful.
Very interesting. If I may say, it's one of the most interesting and balanced responses I've heard on such a topic anywhere. So thanks for that. We're just I'm conscious of the time here, so we are now going at half an hour past our initial time. Do you have time to stay longer? Are you willing to come back perhaps another time and discuss some of these things? And of course, if anyone else has any points, please feel free to comment.
So from my side, unfortunately, I have a lot of fun, but I have to wrap it up. I have a next meeting to go to, but I'll be more than happy to keep talking with you guys in another session. To me, it was a lot of fun, and also, it's also always nice to learn different aspects or different way of thinking about the same problem.
Fantastic. Looking forward to scheduling another call at some other time. Nathan, do you have any final thoughts? Maybe we'll close the room in a minute or two here. Or actually, Collin, you can feel free to leave. We can leave the room open just for whoever's still here that wants to discuss. That's what we usually do here.
Yeah, I forgot to tell everybody on the call when we were recording, but next week on the show, we're going to be having Keshav Singh from University of Alabama and Greg Schmergel. They are co-founders at Yuva Biosciences. So this is a spin-out from Dr. Keshav's work at University of Alabama. They're using mitochondrial therapies to potentially reverse aging. So I encourage everybody who's interested in this stuff, and maybe people who are looking at it from the business development side, or if you're an academic thinking about, oh, how do I spin stuff out from a university, that's going to be a great talk to attend. So next week, it's going to be at original time, so 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific.
All right, so you know what? Maybe what we can do here is what we did one of the other times, and create a separate room for just the longevity open-ended chat. We had an amazing conversation here. Wanted to thank Collin again for joining with Marc and Tobias, and thank you for taking an extra half an hour here. This was a fantastic conversation, and we really should try to do this again, and maybe I can follow up with you offline about some of the stuff that we talked about, for example the vision and where to go. Maybe some of these open questions. I didn't mean to be too hard of a questioner here, but I really appreciated your views on this.
So again, both thank you, Robin and Nathan, for this very interesting conversation, and I look forward to chat more offline, online, wherever, and everybody else who's staying on. Just feel free to contact me if you have any questions or you want to discuss anything. So with that, thank you so much. Had a fun time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, thanks everybody. Nathan, I think I'll close the room. Feel free to open up a new one, and so we can stop the recording and have the open-ended chat here.